Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with a track guide, a race guide I should say, for Daily Race C at Goodwood, the new track that was recently released on GT Sport in Group 4 for Daily Race C. So you can see there, I'm starting from pole position. Obviously I did my time trial in the Alfa Romeo. I'm going to do a track guide for that tomorrow hopefully, but I'm starting the race in pole position in the Citroen. Now the reason I'm using the Citroen for this race is quite simple. The fuel consumption, you'll see there we got traction control on level 1. We're not revving the car until just before the lights go out, and then straight off with the traction control. And another reason why we actually use this car is not only the fuel consumption, it's also very good at race starts. You'll see we got a nice solid start, keeps at P1, we don't get swamped by loads of other cars, and we walk away in P1 still. You can see also if you're starting at the back, you might actually gain a few positions. I found when we were doing our on our other account starting from the back of the grid, we actually gained a couple of positions every time. So very strong car off the start as we start this race in P1 and carry on in P1. So now we're going to go through to the tactics that you're going to use in this race. So the reason we're using this, obviously the fuel consumption, and because the torque curve on this car is very good. What that means is if you change gear before, basically what you can see is the rev range on our dials there. You're not going to see me revving that out maximum. What you'll see is me shifting, but sometimes before you even see the red appearing. Now, it might not be ultimate fast car at doing this, but what it is it's competitive and it saves a massive amount of fuel. You can see as I decide to let that Ferrari go up the inside. And what you'll see me doing in this race is not battling too hard, because there's no reason for me to hold them up and battle them too much, and you know, just it can work in terms of losing them a bit of time. But what I want to do is use their slipstream, use the benefit of their slipstream. So I let him go, then I'm going to tuck into his slipstream and try and utilize that. So for a bit now we're going to stay in one mixture, sometimes going to other mixture. See there, level 3 through the corner, because I was very close to the car in front. So I thought I'll go into level 3 on the mixture, save a bit more fuel, just counter that understeer that you get when you're behind the car in the dirty air, and then back into one mixture down the straight, and we're getting a massive boost. Now one thing about the Citroen is because it's so strong with the gears, because it's got 7 gears and it's quite good in 7th gear. When you're in a slipstream, this car can pick up some very high top speeds, so you're going to get quite a nice boost and slipstream from another car. So it is really an advantage to stay in them cars in front of you. If you let a car go like I've done, try and then stay with him for as long as possible without over revving it. You don't want to burn your fuel up. You can see I'm shifting about 50% at the moment, which is a little bit more fuel usage, but I'm getting the benefit of a one-stop pace. So sometimes you will see people and they will fight these positions, they will battle as hard as they can to stop people getting past. But when you know the other car is on a separate strategy, like the Ferrari is very unlikely going to be no stopping, because it can do it, but it's not as competitive as the Citroen. So you know that them cars are going to be going for the one-stop strategy. So what I prefer to do really is let that car pass. Don't hold both of you up. Keep your pace good, and then just tuck into his slipstream. Save more fuel, and just get the benefit of his slipstream to help your lap times. Now, this is going to pay off at the end of the race. Also, I think the pace of the Citroen, probably with the strategy that I'm running, is maybe 4 or 5 tenths down on that Ferrari, doing a little bit of fuel saving at this stage. But it's the Ferrari's using so much more fuel, so if I just stay in the slipstream, I'm going to get massive benefits. You can see we're going through the sectors on a purple time there, so it's helping me out, and that's the main thing. As you see, going down into 3rd gear in one mixture, short shifting. You'll see sometimes we go into, you know, a little bit higher there. You can see 4th gear, a little bit more revs there, and in 5th gear revving it out a bit more. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I want to stay in that slipstream for as long as possible. So I'm using up a bit more fuel now in this early few laps, just to stay in his slipstream to get the benefit of the draft that I'm going to pull from him. And that's going to help my lap times. And also you will find, even though you're revving out a bit more, when you're in a slipstream you use a little bit less fuel anyway, because you got less resistance. So your fuel consumption will be a bit better on GT Sport if you are in a slipstream anyway. And it'll also give you the benefit of the ability to go into that mixture 6 if you ever, you know, if you really want to be aggressive with the fuel saving. You're not going to see, I don't think I go into mixture 6 at all in this race, although I could have done, but I chose to just keep it fairly simple for this guide that I'm going to show you now. As we now again picking up the slipstream in 7th gear, and you can see we're just trying to stay within that range, and that's what's really important, is to try and stay within that 7/10 range, so that when the slipstream's picked up, you start getting massive gains as we go into mixture 2. And I make a little error here. You can see I don't downshift quick enough, and I nearly understeer wide. and that loses me a vital few temps. So unfortunately, a little error by myself there loses me the slipstream of P1, but it's not the end of the world, because we've just had the benefit of a one-stop pace for two laps pretty much, or 3 laps, 2.5 laps, something like that. So the benefits have already, they're showing. We're now in P2 with a solid gap to the bunch of drivers that are behind us, with some of them cars probably on a no stopper. So we've already done quite a lot of work in this race in these early few laps. As we now go back into fuel saving mode, you can see I've lost the slipstream. There is no point. One thing I really advise that you don't do is try your hardest to get back in that slipstream, because yeah, it can pay off if you manage to get in it, but you run the risk of using a little bit too much fuel up if you do that, and you will then be compromised towards the end of the race when you've got to do massive amounts of fuel savings. So you can see I'm just sticking with my routine. I'm not going to use one mixture through that corner to try and gain on him. I'm just going to go back into my routine, mixture 2 through there, and then short shift it all the way down the straight, and then mixture 2 as we come to the end of this straight. You can see there we're going to go into mixture 2 probably about now. Sometimes I go into mixture 3 there also. You can do this in mixture 3, but I was trying to keep a reasonably good pace so that when the car behind me gets past me, I can start using some of this slipstream in a minute. So you can see going into this right hand corner, you can actually do this by staying in 4th gear, but you see what I do is I go down to 3rd gear, then a very early upshift into 4th gear, just to make sure you've got the car slowed down properly, because again with the Citroen, because of the torque curve, it's got a lot of torque in low down revs. If you run a little bit wide, that curb on the left hand side can spin you, and it will do it with the Citroen, because the Citroen, like I say, has got a very a strong torque pattern in the way it changes when you change gear low down, and that's one of the reasons why it's so good at fuel saving, because you can shift early and it still has very good horsepower. So again, that's what you really want to look for. So to do that, you go into the tuning, have a little look at the graph where it will show you the gear changes and the power. You'll notice with the Citroen that the curve is a lot straighter than other cars. Some cars you'll notice will be very aggressively up. You'll see the curve going straight up as you change. The higher you rev, the more power there is. But this car isn't like that, and that is why it's used. And this is why this car was very strong in the last season's official manufacturer championship, when fuel saving was a massive amount of fuel saving was needed, because you could maintain good speed and still pick up slipstream from people that were on the one stopper, and you wouldn't need to pit then. So I can see this really does emphasize why this car was so strong when fuel saving was involved. Fortunately, this season now, this new season we're going to have soon in manufacturers doesn't look like a fuel saving season. The races are very, very short, and it seems to be all about flat out driving, if I'm honest. So a little bit better, but I'm just a little bit gutted that the races are so short. But getting back into this race, you can see there mixture 3 through this long sweeping right hand corner, and it keeps the car really well balanced through there. Early upshift into 5th gear, and then back into one mixture before we get to the straight. 4th gear through that last coming out the corner as well. You see I don't stay in 3rd gear and rev it out. I early upshift into 4th because the torque's really good in that gear. And now what you're going to see again, I'm not going to battle this guy behind me. There's no point me fighting him, losing pace, losing my overall pace, because I don't want to fight this guy behind and lose 2-3 seconds to P1. What I'm going to do is stay to the left hand side of the track, probably put it in mixture 2, something like that. Let's have a little look now. Let him go through on the inside, put it into mixture 2, tuck him behind him, and now I'm going to utilise the slipstream of P2 for as long as possible. So again there you can see that's a perfect example of thinking about the long run. Don't always just think I'm going to battle him, I need to fight him, stop him getting through. You can see I was looking at the car behind, how close he was. So what I do now is I'm going to try and stay in P2 slipstream for as long as possible. So again, we might rev it out a little bit more. You can see there 4th gear being used a little bit more, but you can see again a bit more in 5th gear. But now I've got that slipstream, so I can go back to pretty much short shifting early up into 7th gear, and then again through this corner it won't really lose you much lap time and go into mixture 2 or 3, because the way the corner is, it actually helps your handling out going into mixture 3 and gives you quite a strong front end, and then it's really smooth on the power as well. You can see how we actually gained on him using mixture 3 through there, and then back onto the power nice and early up into 4th gear. Be careful on that curb. One thing I will say is, because like I say, this car is very good on torque, that is another curb that if you get it slightly wrong and you're turning with the right hand tyres on that curb, you can get caught out very easily. So just be cautious on that one curb. It caught me out once, and it loses you a lot of time. If you spin right round there, you're going to lose a massive amount of time on that point of the track. You can see now that we've actually started to lose the slipstream to P2 pretty much. We're just we're verging on being in it. We've just got a little bit of it there as we go through this corner. And this again, look how strong this car is. We're into mixture 3, keeps the car very stable, and this car is really strong through that section, so it gives you the ability to catch up on some of the other cars through there because it's so stable, even though we were saving fuel. So back into 1 mixture, and we're very close to slipstream range right now. We might pick up a little bit of it, but then you can see he's obviously using more of his fuel up. So again, I'm not going to fight that. I'm not going to use up my fuel and start over revving the car and letting him try and stay within the slipstream. It's not worth it. You can see the Lamborghini that's behind me in P4, he's probably pushing the fuel also quite aggressively. I think the Lamborghini is reasonable on fuel. I just don't think it's anywhere near as good as the Citroen, for example, as we go through the chicane. Again, keeping it nice and tidy and making sure I upshift into 4th gear before I go onto the curb. As you see, P1 pits with 27% fuel. We've got over 20% more fuel than him, so that really does show you how important it is. 20% of fuel just in the pit stops alone would be worth quite a few seconds. But he's also got the time it takes to go in the pits, stop the car, change tyres if he's going to change tyres. I probably wouldn't change tyres, and I don't think a lot of these drivers would. I don't really see the benefit of changing tyres, because changing tyres will cost you about 3 to 4 seconds. I don't think it'll be worth doing that. I really don't know. It'd be interesting to see, because I personally would just rather stay on the lighter fuel car for as long as possible, like this guy in front's doing, and then not change the tyres. I don't know whether it'd be worth half a second a lap, or I don't know. But even if you pit on lap 9 or 10, half a second lap's only going to gain you 2.5 to 3 seconds. So it probably is a better idea just to leave the tyres on. If your car's quite good at tyre wear, just leave them tyres on if you're going to do the one stopper. But like I say, I think this no stopper is the way to go. As you see, into that mixture 3, a little bit lift and coast through these corners. This final corner, these final corners there are very good for lift and coast, and you can lift off pretty much before the 100 board and just coast it into the 50 just before the 50 board. Get on the brakes. As you see there, P1 now pits with 5% fuel, and we've got over 30% fuel, so massive amount more fuel than that car. So that is going to be worth quite a huge margin when we come through to sorting these positions out. Let's have a little look where the driver that pitted on the previous lap is as he comes behind us in a minute. We're still waiting for him to come through. There he is. It's nearly 17 seconds, 16.7 seconds behind, so he has got a lot of catching up to do if he's got any chance in this race. But like I say, this strategy for me, the no stopper, is the safest way to do it. So you're going to see now I need to start doing a bit more fuel saving, because I did use up quite a bit of fuel on them first few laps, trying to make sure I get the benefit of the car's slipstream that was in front of me. But I didn't go too bad. I kept it reasonably safe as we now go back into the fuel saving mode for these final few laps. You're going to see as well, one thing that you should always try and do is, if you have a back marker in front of you like I have now, he's ghosted, so there's no worry about contact. What you should always do is use the slipstream, because you will pick up the slipstream and draft off that car in front. So you'll see me do it when I get near him. Even if it only gains you 2-3 temps, every 2-3 temps counts. And if it gives you a little boost in speed, it means you can do a little extra fuel saving. And especially in top split races, every little bit counts as we now go over the line. And you can see we've still got over 15 second lead, 15.6 second lead as we go over the line. And you'll see the lap times very consistent. Pretty much started the race at low 16s, dropping off to 16.5s, the odd 17. I think there's 1 minute 17 coming up in a minute. I think it might be the lap that we're on now. But you can see there, look what I'm doing. I'm following that slipstream, staying in it all the way down the straight, and I'm getting a benefit from it as well. So I'm going to go into mixture 3 and just sit there and gain down the straight, even though we're lapping someone. Obviously, you're still getting the benefit from the slipstream because he's still there on the track. It's just that the game goes you just to try and stop people wiping other people out, because it did used to be a problem, and it is one of the better features that I like in racing games when they do that. I know it's not always the most realistic thing, but I've had too many people take me out in races to not want that in every single game pretty much. Now, one thing you always need to be very cautious on and be paying attention to is your laps remaining. You'll see there, your laps remaining are based on how you are driving at the current, your average from your first lap to lap 11. So it averages out all that driving and tells you if you carried on driving with an average of that, that's how many laps you've got left. So you've got to bear that in mind. If you've been a bit more aggressive, that will give you the ability to drive slightly more aggressive than what you think sometimes as we go over the line and start lap 12. So we've got 4 laps left and we've got 3.7 laps of fuel. So I know at this stage I do probably need to do a little bit more fuel saving. Not drastic though, because we were quite aggressive on them first few laps. So I know that it will come back to me slightly. So what you'll see me doing is as we come through this corner, what I tend to do is go into mixture 2 or 3 there straight away, into mixture 3 and into mixture 4 actually, trying to save a bit more fuel there. You can actually do it and then just lift and coast, let it just coast through these corners down to 4th gear, early upshift into 5th. This car is so stable when you're lifting coasting. It is very good at doing this strategy as well. One reason why I do like it. Some cars have the tendency when you lift and coast to go a little bit light on the rear and become not so stable, and this car is just so stable over the curbs. You can attack the curbs. The only area where I say it comes a little bit loose is when you put the power down, particularly between 3rd and 4th gear and you hit the curb. That's when it can become a little bit iffy, but there's loads of cars do that. That's just a thing. One of the things with GT Sport is when you get on the curb with certain power bands, it does spin it out, as we now come through to the chicane. To lap another driver in front of us there, P18. So we're actually lapping people in this race. Obviously, you can see the track map. It's very spread out, considering this is a top split race and mainly A+. I think it was S, A+, and A rated drivers in this race. So it is very spread out, considering most drivers are A or above in this lobby. But you can see the delta to P2 on the one-stop strategy. He's now 12.1 seconds. He's obviously putting a little bit more fuel for this second stint, so we can drive it a bit more aggressive. He's on a 1 minute 15.1 at personal, the fastest lap of the race. Now that is a reasonably fast lap. I think that's probably up there with some of the fastest I've seen for the one-stoppers. I haven't tried the one-stop properly yet. I think it might be worth a try, but I just can't see the one-stop being faster than the no-stopper in the Citroen or the Porsche Cayman. Like I say, the Porsche Cayman is another car that you can use for this strategy, along with the Lexus. You might want to try them cars out. They have very good fuel consumption, so they are cars that can in general do this strategy, although I'm not sure about the Lexus's tyre wear compared to the Citroen. I think the Citroen's got better tyre wear than the Lexus, and I'm in Group 4. I'm not sure about the Cayman. I think the Citroen might even have better tyre wear than the Cayman. It'd be interesting to try that out. I do know that this strategy is 100% possible in the Cayman. I did give it a little go in a private lobby just to test it, and it was pretty much equal over the laps. It actually looked like the fuel was slightly better than the Citroen. However, the straight line speed when you're short shifting in first gear wasn't quite as good, so you have to weigh up the options of what you want. Obviously, you want a good straight line speed when short shifting, because when you're behind them people at the start of the race, when they're one stopping, you want to be able to use their toe without actually using too much fuel up. So that's why I think the Citroen is a good choice. But like I said, I think the Porsche will be just as good, pretty much equal to this over the course of the race, as we now come through to the end of lap 14. You see, taking it nice and easy, down into 3rd gear, early upshift into 4th gear again, just before we get on the power for that long right hand corner here, going up the hill into the final corners. You're going to see I go into mixture 2 and then possibly mixture 3 now. Again, you've got to be very cautious, like I say, with the fuel, keeping an eye on the laps remaining, and always make sure you've got over 1 when you start the last lap at this track. For some reason, it seems to use more fuel than what it says you've got left on the final lap, even though it bases it on an average. It seems to be, I have noticed there are a few tracks where it does that. On this track it does it. There are tracks where it's the other way around, and you can actually push more aggressive than what it says. This track seems to be one where you have to be very cautious on this final lap. So you're going to see I make sure on this final lap by not pushing too aggressively. I could have probably pushed a little bit more than what I did here. You see into mixture 2, early upshift into the 7th gear there. Just stops the car on the steering too far wide as well, and saves a lot of fuel as we go down the straight. You see we've just gone past 1 lap of fuel left. We've got 0.9 laps of fuel left now, and we're pretty much a quarter of the way through the lap, so we should be okay. But making sure, you can see into mixture 4, I'm not going to take any chances with this race so far. We've run a very solid race, no real errors, kept it nice and clean. So running that mixture 4 through here, maybe losing out half a second, but it's more important to make sure that you don't run out of fuel, as we now down into 3rd gear, early upshift into 4th again, short shifting it again all the way up this hill, as we have a mistake from P18 there. He's going to get lapped, so he's a lap down as we now work our way up the hill. We're going to probably go into mixture 2 as we come through this corner there. Yeah, mixture 2, and then possibly stay in mixture 2 there, because it looks like the fuel's actually in reasonably good shape, you can see. So staying in mixture 2, down into 4th gear, let it just coast through this corner, then early on the power, early upshift into 5th, staying in mixture 2 as well, because I don't want to go into one mixture and use up too much fuel. Early upshift into 4th gear, coming up to the finishing line, and we actually go down to first gear because I can see that I've got plenty of fuel left, and we actually finished with 0.2 laps of fuel. So we could have pushed one mixture a little bit more on that final lap, but we finished over 7 seconds clear of the one-stop strategy in a 15-lap race. So that's basically half a second a lap, with a very nice finishing time of 19 minutes 12 seconds. Now, I haven't seen that being beat yet by a one-stop strategy. I have done quite a few of these races now, so it'll be interesting if someone can beat that with a one-stop. It would obviously be possible for obviously the likes of TRL Lightning and stuff like that to beat that, but for myself, I think this is the safest and overall best strategy for all situations, because even if you make a mistake, I've made loads of mistakes in this race and still come away with a podium even with mistakes, and we started at the back of the grid and still got ourselves in the top 5 a number of times even with mistakes. So I think for the average, it's going to be definitely better to use this car, or like I say, the Cayman or something, and go with the no stop strategy of just saving fuel. It's really consistent, and I think the more this week goes on, the more people are going to do this strategy, and that will make the one stopper even harder, because then the one stoppers are going to have to fight their way through a lot of traffic and lose time. So I think it's best that you try this out, get used to it, and you'll probably pick up some really good results and boost your driver rating up. Anyway, hope this video has been helpful. I wanted to do it with the gameplay so you could see all the fuel adjustments that I make, so you can see everything that I'm doing. Sometimes we do our race videos from the replay, but you won't get to see the fuel mixture from them. So I made sure I did this with the Elgato and just recorded it all for you to see, every adjustment that I've made. And I could have like skipped certain laps, but I wanted to make sure that you could see all the changes that I made from lap 1 all the way to the end, and all the short shifting, just so you can really analyze it, and you might be able to improve on it. I'm sure I'll be able to improve on this, but I think there's possibly another 2-3 seconds left in this Citroen. Maybe getting it under the 19 minutes 10-second mark will be the aim. But overall, happy with that. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all soon for another video. Thanks again for watching, everyone.